Hello, Rocket Ridge students. This is chapter 18 of Lunch Money. It's called Complicated. 3 minutes after Maura showed Greg the book club flyer, they rushed into Mr. Z's room, and Maura said, "Mr. Z, we've got to ask you something." Startled, Mr. Z looked up from the quizzes that he was grading. "Oh, sure. About math?" he said hopefully. Greg shook his head. "Look." He put the flyer on the teacher's desk and pointed at the book Garfield Comics. "How come it's okay for kids to buy books like that here at school, but it's not okay for us to sell our mini comic books?" Mr. Z picked up the flyer and flipped through it. He had seen packets of these in the office by the teacher's mailbox, but he always went to the reading and language arts teacher, never to him. "Very interesting. So," said Maura, "does the book club have special permission from the school committee or something?" Mr. Z nodded. "I guess they must," Maura said. "Well, then that's not fair, because our comics aren't so different from some of these books, and they're selling them right here at school. Here, take a look at this." Maura had borrowed back her copy from The Lost Unicorn from Allison and handed it to Mr. Z. Greg and I finished this weekend. And I know it's not supposed to be here at school, but she had it hidden all day. And I just wanted to see it, because it's good. And it's not even violent." Mr. Z began to thumb through the comic. Drawings were exceptional, especially for student work. "Remember, Mrs. Davenport." He glanced toward the doorway and then quickly flipped through the rest of the pages. Maura was right. There was less violence in the comic book than there was in a lot of classic fairy tales. And looking at the credits in the back cover, he saw that the two former enemies had apparently worked together. Mr. Z smiled and nodded his approval, and immediately Maura said, "So you want special permission too, like the book club, to sell our comics. Who should we talk to?" Mr. Z looked from Maura's face to Greg's. He could see there was no point in trying to talk them out of this. He took a deep breath and decided to try anyway. "Well, the school committee has a meeting once a month, but the principals of each school are always in the meeting. And you already know how Mrs. Davenport feels about comic books." Then handing the little book back to Maura, he said, "And please put that away." "But what about these comics?" said Greg, pointing at the flyer again. "She's letting these be bought and sold at school, so that's not fair." Mr. Z nodded. "I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just telling you that what you're asking. Well, it's complicated." Mr. Z pulled a handful of papers from the inbox on his desk, flipped through 5 or 6 sheets, and then said, "The school committee meets this Thursday night at 7:30 in the municipal building. And I guess if you want to go and talk then, there's nothing stopping you, but it's complicated." Greg shook his head. "You keep saying complicated. Complicated. Why? We're just asking for the same deal the book club is getting. What's so complicated about that?" "Well," Mr. Z said, "for one thing, the book club are big companies, and I know they have teachers, I know teachers on very reading experts working for them, helping them pick the books. And on the back of the flyer it says teachers get free books for their classrooms when they send in orders. So the book club helps teachers, plus they're helping kids learn, getting excited about reading books. And you're just a couple of kids who want to sell some comics to make some money." Greg said, "But aren't the book clubs making money?" Mr. Z nodded. "I'm sure they are." "So there's still no difference," said Greg. "And we can give away free copies of our comics to teachers too. That's not a problem." "Yeah," Maura said, "and we'll even give some profit to the school library fund. 10% of our profits for buying new library books." "What?" said Greg. The girl is giving money away. His money. Maura ignored him. "So what do you think, Mr. Z? What do you think? Do you think we'll have a chance?" "Well, I suppose so," he said. "Great," said Maura, because I already told Greg on Friday so that you could help us with business stuff. So this is great. What should we do first?" Mr. Z gulped. You mean, well, I really don't think I can. I mean, Mr. Z looked for Mora's face to Greg, and then back to Mora, and then there was no way out. So he decided to stall for a time. Well, I guess first I better do a little thinking. All of us should. And you should both talk to your parents about this because you want to know what you're thinking about doing. So how about we all take some time and then we get back together again to compare our notes. How's that sound? Mora made a face. It sounds slow because the school committee is Thursday night, so we have to have a meeting again tomorrow before school. Like at 7:30. Greg nodded. Before school. Okay. Mr. Z, see you tomorrow. Both the kids turned and rushed out. Greg to soccer practice, Mora to catch her bus. Sitting at his desk, Mr. Z felt like he'd been run over by a couple of go-karts. He tried to remember what he'd been going through only 2 minutes earlier. Oh yes, grading quizzes. He picked up his red pen, but Mr. Z couldn't concentrate. And even the peace and quiet of room 27 didn't help. Sure, it was calm and orderly now, but he had an uneasy feeling, and the kind that comes just before a storm.